you're in the company of comedians, you just know you're going to have a good time no matter what.
I know. Although it's funny because I think I was listening to your episode with I think it was Shane. You're talking about like comedians always being not necessarily everyone's always switched on, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because that Newry gig when I did it was like I drove down with Paddy McDonald. Paddy's just got this reputation for being a mad bastard, like. But you see the whole way down in the car, I just wanted to put a wee blanket around him and talk. He was just shattered, like, and
just bait.
I think his wife had their most recent baby fairly recently, and he was just broken, like.
Just sleepless nights. No. It's like I do miss it. Like it's kind of it's one of the topics I've kind of been talking about in the podcast. And if people are listening to sort of earlier episodes, I'm going like, I don't miss it at all. I'm actually all right. But now that I'm talking to people and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm dying to get on a stage and tell some Ian Thompson jokes.
Yeah, son of a bitch. Getting a very angry letter from my solicitor about that.
I couldn't believe that, because that's a joke. For anyone who's listening to this and hasn't listened to the Jordan Robinson episode, I wrote a joke. Well, I thought I wrote a joke. Actually, was drifting off to sleep one night and thought of this, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great, and put it into my phone. So I must have been just thinking.
You just had anal sex?
Well, no, definitely not. I can't remember what it was, but I wrote it down on my phone in my notes. I was like, this joke is great. This is going to go down really well. And then told it on the podcast. Jordan encouraged me, which I'm glad he did now that I know that it's your joke.
I've seen someone else do it in a sort of meme form on Twitter as well in the last year. Like, it's just one of those jokes that, it's fairly obvious. Like, if you're looking for wordplay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think I don't know how when I started doing it, but I've got a whole thing that basically, like, I do have to get my ear syringed a couple of times a year.
Right.
So I had this. It started off like as a one-liner, just about how, it's safe to assume that you're officially a middle-aged man when the part of your anatomy you most eagerly anticipate being sucked empty of fluid suddenly becomes your right ear. And then on the back of that, I just thought up all these jokes where I've misheard stuff that's basically just words that sound the same.
Yeah.
But I've sort of built the story around me mishearing things. I've done that quite a few times, stuff that started off as like a one-line joke. And then I've just sort of tried to find other bits and pieces that I can sort of weave around it.
I already create from it. Whereas I'm the opposite with a lot of my material. If I've got a longer bit, I'm looking for that one line and that's it.
Have you always just done one-liners?
Not only. So I started. The first time you saw me, I think, was maybe Hug Uglies, because I remember you coming up to me and saying that you loved one particular joke, which I think was the period joke.
Drama?
Yeah. Which I get a mixed response from, but I love that joke.
That's a great joke.
No, I started like 2012 was my first ever gig, so like long time ago, but I only did it for like a year or two, but very sporadically, and then stopped for like probably about 5 years, like 4 or 5 years, just stopped. It's talked about in the podcast before. I kind of just lost interest, but I wasn't doing one-liner. Well, no, to be honest, I started doing one-liners towards the end, like my last couple of gigs, and I actually got a really good response. But because gigs were so few and far between, you could never build up a momentum, or I would just lose my nerve and then just sort of lost interest with it. So it kind of stemmed from that. But I'm starting to kind of think, do I try and maybe one of my last gigs, I started to do some longer bits, and I have a couple of bits that I haven't done before, which are slightly longer. But I feel with one-liners, it's my safe zone.
Yeah.
Like it's just
good. There's not too many people like in the sort of Northern Irish scene that do them. Like it's just you and Jordan sort of does half a set of one-liners, and then
Sean Haggerty
O'Hagan as well.
Yeah. And Sean Haggerty would be probably the most
Of course, yeah, Sean.
He's probably the most known,
But
and
no, I
that's it.
love one-liners. Like, funny, I
Yeah.
was thinking of doing, the best of three thing that Robbie does
Oh yeah.
down in the Ulster Sports Club.
Yeah. And just
I
try and write.
I would quite like to try that and just do 3 minutes of one-liners sometime to
Yeah.
see how I get on.
I think I worked it out. For me, it was maybe like, it's maybe 20 jokes or something. Maybe even less, maybe like 15,
Uh-huh.
20 jokes. And whereas most of
In
my
three
sets,
minutes.
yeah, I think it was about 15, 20 jokes. It just depends because some of my one liners are slightly longer than others. But yeah, it's about 15, 20 jokes. Because my sets nowadays are more like, normally minimum like 30.
Uh-huh.
So I'm normally doing now
And
between
do
maybe.
do
Hmm?
you find you have to do them in like the same order, or
Um, yeah, I try not to because there's a lot of the times I'll maybe be dropping a joke or adding a joke, that sort of thing. But there was a while where I was doing like the same set over and over again for a good while because I was getting plenty of gigs, and then I would change it, and then I would do another gig, and it's almost like muscle memory. Like I'm telling the joke before I realize I'm telling the joke because it just progresses from the last one. And it happened a couple of gigs where I'm like, I wasn't
yeah, yeah.
supposed to tell that joke, but it was
Uh,
maybe one that I've
no, I've
cut,
got that. It's
and
easy
it's
enough to just go on autopilot sometimes, like.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's not good when that happens, like, because you're not really thinking about.
yeah,
You're almost just. You might as
yeah,
well be singing a song or something. It's just
exactly.
so.
Because a lot of the time, because of with the one-liners as well, I'm normally thinking more about the next joke than the one that I'm actually telling because I know the joke so well. I can think about the next one, and
Uh,
sometimes I'm not thinking at all. As you say, it's literally just it's just happening, and then you're having a pint, and then you're thinking, did that go
yeah,
well or did that not? And hopefully, people tell you that it went well.
yeah. I know, funny. I was like trying to think back to my sort of last sort of 10 gigs or so.
Yeah,
And like I had like because that best of three in the Ulster Sports Club, like I'd done it twice before downstairs,
yeah.
and like I fucking loved it. Like it went really well, and then I did it upstairs, and it was like the worst gig I'd had in about a year.
Oh,
But
really?
do you know something? It was almost a good thing
Mm.
because it's much better, I think, to have a really bad gig than one that's just like mediocre because you learn more and
Oh,
you
yeah.
just, it's painful when you're in there. But
Oh,
if you're going to have
100%.
a bad one, if it's only 3 minutes long, that's the time to do it. Like,
No, exactly, and it's one of the things that put me off as well when I first started. So I was quite young when I first started, like very early 20s, and having a bad gig back then for me was like the worst thing ever because every time I went on stage, I'm like, I'm going to absolutely kill it. But no matter how good you are, you're always going to have those gigs
yeah,
where the audience just isn't in the mood or they just don't find you funny or whatever. Whereas now, if I'm having a bad gig, and thankfully they're not as regular as they were back then, but it is more you sort of just enjoy it. It's not you enjoy it. You try and enjoy yourself anyway, even if it's going absolutely terribly. You try and do something because I think my
yeah,
last one I had a joke that didn't go down. It just went absolutely flat. It was a joke that I had just written and just no one laughed because I don't think either the wording wasn't right or it just wasn't a funny joke. And so I just went to my notepad, just sort of said out loud, I can't even remember what the line was, something like, do not do this joke again or something like that. And so things like that where it's like I recognized that this didn't
and did you
work.
get a laugh then on the
Oh yeah,
back of that?
I got a laugh from that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've uh, I've done a joke before and I didn't get a laugh, and then I was sort of annoyed at the audience,
Oh,
so
I've
just
seen
told it again. I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you people?" And yeah, I sort of bullied them into laughing second time round, like. But
I've seen that before, and it's not always a good sign because if that happens again and they don't laugh the second time, you're like, oh right, okay, it's me.
yeah, yeah. Well, funny. That was like one of the few gigs that my partner was at, and
Oh,
because I think I'd said the joke in conversation or something, and she found it really funny. So I was looking at
Right.
her as if to say, what's the story with these idiots? Like,
Like
and
you
she
remember
was
this?
sort of cringing, and then I just told it again and got away with it.
Dear. Yeah, you can be lucky sometimes when it comes to that. I used to have done that before, but it's one of those things that it's borderline because you don't want to question the audience's intelligence either, in case you're like, well, you're just not smart enough to get this.
I know, but then if you have the audacity to sort of just like outright
Yeah,
call them idiots,
yeah, and
you
sometimes
know,
they are,
well, it's only going to go one or two ways.
and
All
sometimes
right,
they are. As much as I love the audiences,
oftentimes,
sometimes they are just idiots. Um, so the podcast does have
yeah.
the podcast does have a little bit of structure, not loads, but a little bit. So a couple of questions, and my first one is just thinking back to the last year. You're saying you haven't had a gig since when did you say? March was it?
March 14th of March.
March 2020.
Yeah.
So for the last year, with not having any gigs, or even just through your own work, what has kept you sane?
Um, I'm pretty lucky in that, like, not that much has changed for me because I'm a landscaper.
Yeah,
You know, we closed down for like 2 or 3 days
oh
while the boss
serious?
sort of worked out, legally, could we be going into people's gardens and, you know, is it all
Yeah,
right to be lifting equipment together and being in a van together and stuff? And quickly established that it was fine. So
right.
yeah, and then just like having young kids as well. Like I've got my son's 10 and my daughter just turned 9 last week. So you
Yeah,
don't really get it. There's not been any
I
periods
mean,
of like sitting in the house
yeah,
frustrated and bored.
I know sort of
So
major
yeah,
upheaval
I'm
at
sort of
all. But
lucky in that. No, my routine's pretty much the same. So I mean, there are times when you just want to fucking go for a pint or just go to the cinema or do something.
I just do
So
something.
that's been fairly boring. But then I've sort of also been trying to like just like do like just try out new stuff. Like I've sort of got into swimming in the sea.
Oh yes,
Um, so just like, and that's kind of good because I go with like a couple of friends that I've known for nearly 30 years, like,
yeah.
and so it's just good to go and catch up. And it's not ideal that the sea's fucking 1 degree at times, but just you see the rush you get from it. I don't want to sound like a total wanker, but it is amazing. Like you
Yeah, no,
do,
I've
you do.
it's something I know because I've a lot of quite a few friends as well. I see it on Instagram all the time. People doing it, and it's from what I've heard, it's supposed to be like amazing. And for like the podcast as well, is sort
Take
of
it easy.
touching on mental health, and it's supposed to like just clear the head completely, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it has been proven to like, but it obviously depends on the temperature of the water. It's not quite so bad now,
Yeah.
but I was doing it in December and January,
Aye.
and like you're going into the water, and as soon as it hits your balls, your heart rate is going a mile a minute, and then you get into the water, you're acclimatized to it, but then you see for like the rest of the day, it really is like being on speed or something
Oh,
because I think
serious?
it's like the amount of endorphins that your body releases when you get out. Basically, your body's like,
Oh.
"Hooray, we're not dead. Let's have a load of celebratory
Just
chemicals in your brain."
it just goes into shock. Is that how
Yeah,
is that how you test the temperature of the bath water as well? Is it like just balls first?
yeah, I don't have an option. Like I'm approaching my mid 40s, and those things are going to wind to their own now, Johnny.
Just
I
throw
remember whenever I was at school, I was a bit of a late developer, and you'd be in the shower after PE. And I'd be like, I wish my balls would hurry up and drop. And now I'm just like, guys, fucking feel free to stop at any stage. Like,
you just throw
doing,
you just throw
doing
them over
keepy
the
uppies in the shower these days.
just throw them over the side of the bath. No, dear,
That's the way to do it. It's
that's
awkward
terrible.
though when you're going into the sea in your shorts, especially in
Yeah.
Helens Bay. Those North Down types don't like seeing your balls swinging about by your ankles.
No wonder I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised it's cold. But it sounds it does.
Yeah.
It's something I'm living up in Carrick now, so
Uh,
I'm by the sea. But I'll be honest, I haven't been tempted to jump in just yet. But who knows?
have you seen people doing it in Carrick?
Not not sea, not sea swimming. I've seen people like maybe you'd see people out in like oh, what do you call them? Like the kayaks and stuff. But
Uh,
then you see the odd fisherman. But I don't know. Maybe there isn't a scene here. Maybe I could start it.
I did see, because I was up in Carrick, must have been about August time, and I just
Yeah.
saw some kids like just past the castle, just jumping off a wall into the water.
Oh
But
really?
yeah, I don't know. Helen's Bay is perfect because it's just
Yeah.
so sheltered that
Yeah.
you know, Carrick just doesn't look quite as appealing. But then it's not North Down.
No. True. True. East Antrim doesn't really have the same ring to
No, not
it.
at all.
No. But other than that, have you started any other hobbies, or has that been the main one that's kind of taken on your
Actually I signed up for a joinery course as well at
right?
Belfast Met, which has been quite good.
Yeah.
So I do like I really believe that just like trying out new stuff and doing new things like just helps improve your sort of mental wellness.
Yeah.
And like joinery and DIY is always something that I've been really shit at.
Right.
So going to class and having that confirmed by teacher was really good. Like just
It's official
official
then.
confirmation that I'm fucking useless. I managed to make a table, which was quite an achievement. I've sort of made a wine rack, but I'm not brave enough to put any bottles of wine in it because I think it's just going to fall apart. The problem is, like, we seem to have accumulated. I don't know why, but anytime people buy like me or Shona a bottle of wine, it's always white. And like
Oh really?
white wine's just shit. If you ask me, like we only drink red, so we've just got like so much white wine about the house. But
I'm the same.
hopefully petrol pump season will be upon us again, and we'll be able to just throw them at the place.
It's probably the best use for some bottles of white wine.
Yeah, definitely in my book.
You need to get like the big bottles of Lambrini.
Yeah, a big magnum champagne.
I would do
Certainly
the job.
wouldn't catch me doing that with a nice Rioja.
No, not at all. I'm very much a red wine drinker. I was about to say a wed wine drinker, but red wine drinker.
Yeah,
um, I used to work on an off license years ago, so I kind of took it upon
uh,
myself to learn about the wine. So I would take like a different bottle home every week, and I didn't
where
bring
was
it
that?
back. Russell's on the Lisburn Road. It
Uh,
wasn't always fun, especially not on the 12th day when it was like the only off license.
sure. Is that the wee one at the top of Tate's Avenue?
No, it's the one down opposite the Albany. Like down.
Yeah, because like a few of my mates actually worked in the one. There's a wine mart just beside the
Yeah.
Albany, or there was
Uh,
for years. Like,
I
and
think it's further. It's a wee bit further on up, but it was a nightmare. I used to work there on the 12th day, and I was like the supervisor. So any people kicking off, it was straight to me to try and sort it out. And it was the 12th day was horrendous. And I remember there was a guy who was I don't know what the best phrase to use, but slightly terrifying. And he was queued up at the coffee machine, so there's maybe like 15 people, and he got to the front of it, and then realized that the coffee machine didn't sell tea because it's a coffee machine, and came
so
up to
what?
me. He came up to me and he was just absolutely raging, and I'm like, I'm sorry,
I'm gonna
like
have you shot.
Mister, definitely, but I cannot confirm paramilitary. I'm sorry, we don't have any tea. I was nearly gonna go out the back and make him one myself, like. It was
Yeah,
off.
man. The general public, like, just a nightmare.
I know I'm starting my
Funny,
first
like
day
my
back.
mates that worked in that wine mart.
Mm. Oh,
Go ahead.
it was horrendous. My first day back to work was today. We open officially tomorrow,
Uh,
so this episode won't be out for a few weeks, but this is like the day before everything opens. And it's like,
Yeah.
I've worked like
Are
3
you
weeks.
down on
Ann Street.
Ann Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just opposite Bootleggers.
So,
So it's.
do you think it's going to be busy, like, or?
I don't know. I hope so. Just for the sake of my sanity and for the business, I hope it's busy. But I just don't know. Like we don't just sell suits. We sell casual wear as well, which more people probably be buying. But like nowadays, who's really buying suits? Because who's going to the office? There's so many.
I know, right enough.
Most people who were going to the office are now working from home. And weddings
Yeah.
aren't as big as what they were. You can only have like 30 people,
Yeah.
so that's brought numbers way down.
Funerals are very popular.
I know we always make sure we've got plenty of black suits. Like they're absolutely flying off the shelves, but
Happy days.
it's funerals are keeping us in business. Like now that people aren't dying as much, like it's I don't know how that's gonna affect us.
You just have to keep your fingers crossed for that third spike.
Pretty much. I mean, people still are dying. It's not like people have stopped dying altogether, but you know.
Yeah.
It's just not.
It's just.
It's not what it was.
Interesting to see what happens next. Like if everything's going to go back to normal, or if it'll go tits up again.
No, it's crazy. Like it's weird. I've worked maybe 3 weeks in the last year, which is absolutely insane. Like 3 full weeks, I think, collectively.
So what are you doing? What you're doing?
I started a podcast.
Yeah.
But that's only been like the last month or so. But other than that, not a whole lot. I moved out. It's been quite eventful. Get into a relationship. We're now living together. So I'm living up in Carrick now rather than Lisburn. But it's really nice, and we're moving out in 2 weeks' time. Next week, Monday week, the 10th of May, whenever that is. So we're getting a new apartment.
Very good.
Just a different part of Carrick, so that's exciting. So this look will be gone soon. So you could be the last.
I like it.
You could be the last person. Well, we are bringing the tree.
Is it bamboo?
I don't think it's. I don't know if I don't think it's real. No, I think it's what's fake bamboo, like bamboo. I don't know.
Bamboo.
I don't know. It's not real.
We say that about we like family and joke. We say that about everything. Like if you get like Sainsbury's brand Irish cream, we call it Faileys. And like just like crappy bacon is faking and stuff like that. But like our kids would just be like anything that looks like a dodgy rip-off of something, they always put the F in front of it. So it's like my daughter, like she just loves to say, "Daddy, what would you call a fake duck?" Like you're just like, "Hi."
Oh, nice try. Nice try.
Trying to push the boat out there.
Brilliant. Do you remember? I don't know if you've heard this joke before. I'm pretty sure that this is an Alan Irwin joke. Alan, who was on the first episode of the podcast, and the joke is, what do you call a fake lasagna? An impasta.
That sounds like an Alan Irwin joke.
I'm pretty sure it's an Alan Irwin joke. Maybe I might not have told it as well as him, but I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next section of the podcast, which is the 3 things that I said to you. 3 things that drive you insane, and we'll go through them, and then I will pick one to... I think since you're a sea swimmer, we will put it in the sea. So what's your first one?
Okay, I would have to say woman drivers, immigrants coming over here stealing our jobs, and the bloody woke brigade. Johnny, next question.
Okay, so
no, I had to think that was all a joke. By the way, I'm pretty much married to an immigrant who's also a female driver, and incredibly woke.
So say, is she awake?
No, see, this actually tortured me for a while. Thinking, I just kept thinking about like certain traits in people, and then I realized I just like don't like people. So I decided to go for other stuff, and I was just trying to notice things that upset me. And my partner said that this is one thing that I always gurn about is it's what is known in economics as planned obsolescence,
Well,
which is
so
basically just
I mean,
shit that is designed to break.
oh yes, I know exactly what you mean. Like,
So
like they're
it's
basically
just like,
putting in like an expiry on something, like a product though that should last longer. But
yeah, it's like Apple are the worst for it. Like I've never had
yeah,
any Apple products, but it's like they will suck you in with some like really tasty phone or tablet or something. But it's only going to last for a certain time because they're going to update all the software so it stops working.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just like everything. Like those headphones, they were a couple of £100, and like they're
And
really
they're
good. But
but
to see the wee leather pads on them, they just like started to crack and like sort of peel apart after like less than a year. And they still sound great, but they just want you to buy a new pair, which
yeah,
is very clever. But
that's basically what it
yeah,
is. And
it just pisses me off in a like completely irrational way. It's like my dad's got like speakers and stuff from like I don't know, probably the late '60s or '70s that still works perfectly.
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
nowadays, everything's just designed to break to suck you into buying
It's
the
mad because
same
we
or the latest update.
yeah. Like back in the day, things were made, and they were when they were making it was like this needs to be made so it will last forever.
Yeah, but even the whole sort of marketing side of things is just the whole illusion that if you buy this thing, your life will be better, which often isn't the case. But it's
Yeah,
you might have just I don't know, like a razor that works perfectly fine, and then they'll release another razor, like an update, with like our sharpest blade ever on the other side, and it's like, why not put your fucking sharpest blade ever on the front when it's
yeah.
needed? You dick.
It's one of those things as well. Though talking about razors, like I obviously don't shave that much, like, but
I
um,
shave a lot.
yeah, I'm the opposite. But whenever you see those things as well, there's maybe like 10 different versions of the same thing as you say. So it's like, but it's not even. But they're so different, but they're so exactly the same. So it's like you say, sharpest razor ever, and it's not like the one at the other end is like just like a fork or something like.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. I probably shouldn't get as upset about that as I can sometimes, but yeah, I don't know. Just the whole rampant consumerism and like you need to buy shit to be happy. It's all just a myth. Although, like, don't get me wrong, like I'm completely sucked into it, and
Yeah, I'm the
especially
same.
with moving house, it's just
Yeah.
like all right, we're going to need to buy a new bin because the bin that we have that's perfectly good doesn't look right in that corner. Like, I
Oh,
just spent like £100 on a fucking bin
oh,
because it
it's
was like the perfect shape for the corner of the kitchen.
oh yeah, we're the same. Like I moved in here at basically the start of the lockdown, so start of the year basically. And we've been to the range like 3 times, and I
Uh-huh.
don't think I've spent under £100 every time I've been there.
I know.
But it's
And
like
like you
so
see,
much
as soon as
stuff.
you go into somewhere like that, yeah. So like you go in there or B&Q or IKEA or anywhere,
Yeah.
and it's just immediately you're buying stuff that you don't even want.
Yeah. So now you come home and you've got 6 bags full of stuff, and you're like, whereas like but to be fair, I think we are using most of the stuff like, but it's like almost like like walking onto the set of like QVC, but you don't actually hear the people telling you that you need it, but it's just there, and you just pick it up and
Yeah,
just keep
yeah.
putting it in the trolley.
It's just done in other subtle ways to tell you that you need it. Like I went to B&Q like I think the week after we moved in here, and it was like super sweet. We were just going along with a trolley, going, "Ah, we need that, we need that." In fairness, like I actually kept the receipt, and after about a week, the two of us were like, "Why did we buy all this shit?" and took half of it back and got our money back.
I'm like that with clothes. Like we're both terrible when it comes to clothes, and it's just so easy nowadays. Like I will buy loads of clothes online and then return half of it because you'll get it the next day and you can return it. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Klarna. which is an online thing where
No,
you don't
it's
have
not
to.
like an app.
Yeah, well, it's an app, but it's an online thing where you don't have to pay for like 30 days. So I basically,
Right, okay. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
yes, I'll order the stuff, try it on, whatever, keep some of it, but there's no money exchanging hands. And it's like
Uh-huh.
I don't know, it's some sort of weird thing in my brain where it makes me feel good to like buy stuff online, but not actually buy it.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm winning, even though if I keep it, I will owe them money.
yeah. See, I'm not too bad because I'm a pretty sort of standard build. Anything like it's a medium just
You're
fits
grand.
me. But yeah, Shona is like, 5 foot tall, and
Mm.
she buys stuff online and it never ever fits, and she goes nuts. But
Oh, women's clothes
hopefully
are
someday
horrendous.
she'll learn that.
Women's clothes are horrendous though. Like I feel sorry for any woman buying clothes online because there's about 400 different fits.
But it's actually the same. That's another thing that annoys me, and you might know about this. Is like, why if I go into like Zara and buy like a medium shirt,
Yeah.
and then go into Zara the next week and buy a medium shirt and it's too small? It's like, why is it not standardized?
No, that's and we're.
Why do we pay these people in the third world to make these clothes? Like,
I know, but that's it. I think it depends on the size of the arms of the child in the sweatshop.
right? Yeah, obviously.
I'm joking. That's
Man,
terrible.
I I accidentally ended up in a sweatshop in Indonesia. Just like I
What
remember,
do you need a new
sort of,
shirt?
huh?
Did you need a new shirt?
Yeah, we were in Bali, and there was this like barman in the hotel that we stayed. I just got chatting to him one. I think Shona was like getting a massage or something, and I was just sitting having a couple of pints in the bar. And I was reading Jamie Carragher's book, and the barman was like, he was from Bali. And he's like, "Oh, you
Yeah.
support Liverpool?" And he started talking to me all about Liverpool. And I just like chatted to him for ages. And then he was like, "Oh, by the way, if you want any Liverpool merch, you can get it cheap. There's a place." So he ended up taking me like on a tour on his moped the next day on his day off, and like going
Right.
around this market, and it was amazing. Like it was class. But then he just took me into this week like back alley and into this establishment. And he was like speaking to the guy, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm just telling him to get the Liverpool stuff for you." And next thing, these kids come out holding these like knockoff Liverpool shirts that
What?
were like so ridiculously bad. It looked like, honestly, well, it probably had been stitched by a 6-year-old, but it was the most awkward thing. I was like, "Oh my God, this is clearly a sweatshop." But at the same time, I felt obliged to buy stuff. Um,
You're also thinking what a bargain. Like.
yeah, I was like, "Is that the best price you've got me?"
Okay. I'll give you half. Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
yeah. There's no way I'm paying those prices, you 6-year-old prick.
There's a 3-year-old down the street doing it for better now.
Man, I could get these at Nuts Corner for half the price.
Oh dear, that's terrible. I didn't think I would
Yeah,
cancel myself this early on the podcast, but
no, it
oh
was.
dear.
I did end up buying just like a few random garments, just
Yeah.
because I felt he's gone to all this trouble, and these
I
people have gone to the trouble of making shit knockoff Liverpool gear. That's
yeah.
I have to buy something now.
Oh dear. And did you say they're terrible copies, were they?
Yeah, like I remember one of them had like the Liverpool crest was green. I
Right.
was like, are these people colorblind?
Oh, brilliant. That's they probably just ran out of red, I imagine. Like,
Yeah, I think they must have had some sort of sight issues.
dear me. Okay, so that was the first one. Even though we moved on to other topics, but the first one was planned obsolescence, which I hope I've spelt correctly, and will be very impressed if I did. What's your second one?
Uh, Sentimentality, like it can literally drive me insane. Just
Right.
harking back to the good old days and just thinking about like the past. Because that's the thing. Like as great as my job is, right? You're outside, which even in this country in the winter isn't as bad as you might imagine. You're
Yeah.
you're doing physical work, so it's good for you know,
Yeah.
your body good for your frame of mind a lot of the time,
Yeah.
especially when we've got good weather. But it can be quite solitary work. So, you might go off in vans together, and
Yeah.
then one person goes one way in the garden and you go the other, and you don't actually see anyone for like an hour and a half or whatever. So there's
Yeah.
times like I just hear a song and start thinking, oh, this reminds me of, whenever I was at university. I'm that girl. Why didn't I ask her out? And just like, I can
I
just disappear into this wormhole in my mind where I'm just like beating myself up about something that, you're never going to be able to change. And then, like, I've got a lot better at sort of catching myself on and going, hang on, I mightn't have done that, but I was pretty happy most of the time. I'm like, you
yeah.
know,
It's one of those things like
there's nothing
where
you can do about it.
you say like I would get that sometimes, and it's maybe not something like that. It's more I'll remember something that I said that was just really stupid, and then
Yeah, that
and
as
then
well.
and then spend an hour just being like, why did I say that, and what kind of a person am I? Like recently, it was the one where I was serving a customer years ago, and in my head I was about to say cheers. And when it came out, I was obviously thinking of both cheers and thanks, and just went chanks. And I probably think
Yeah,
about that way more than I should, and that was about 10 years ago. Like,
I. It's just like I can just do that. So I've got a lot better recently. And funny, I was actually listening to. Have you ever heard the Best of the Best podcast with Connor Keys?
yeah, I know it. Yeah.
So he was doing the most recent one. Aaron McCann was on, and they were talking about Tyler the Creator, some album I'm not familiar with.
Me neither. I have no
But
idea.
even it's just a good podcast, and I was listening to it. But
Yeah.
they were talking about a specific song on this album called November, where like the rap is basically talking about how November is just referring to this period of his life that he looks back on with such fondness, and
Right.
just how it, in his mind, November is this perfect time when he was happy and everything was sort of falling into place for him. But then ultimately, the song, the message behind the song is yes, that was great, but there's no point dwelling on it forever
Yeah.
because you can't go back, and you have to look forward, and things are going to be as
Yeah.
good, if not better, at some stage in the future.
Yeah. No, I like that. I
So
think
they played
it's
a little clip of the song.
yeah. It's basically sometimes as well. Whenever you think back, to things like that as well, and you're like, oh yeah, that was a much happier time. But literally, if you could go back, it's never quite. I don't think it would ever be the same as what it is in your head, because you've got these memories that you've sort of created, and it's not always as good. So either the memory is either a good memory or a bad memory, I think, the majority of the time, and it's you don't think about some of the other stuff that you've probably blocked out.
Yeah, no, that's great. You just things are never quite as you might remember them. Um, but yeah, there's times I can torture myself because I'm sort of just I can just think about one thing that
Yeah.
happened for like hours.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I think it's something that I've kind of learned over the years as well, is in terms of like just even just my mental health, in terms of thinking about stuff. There's times where I would have like really beat myself up and got down about maybe stuff that's happened in the past, whereas now it's like it happened. You literally can't do anything about it. And in some ways, you say maybe it has shaped to where you are now. And I'm the same myself. Like I'm probably the happiest I've been in a long time, and I think a lot of that is down to also being able to be aware of like what your brain's doing and what your mind's doing. And if there's times where you are feeling down or you are thinking back to something that happened, to be able to recognize that and then sort of move on from there.
Yeah,
No, that's
yeah.
what.
Well, you've got to take the rough with the smooth in life, I suppose. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's number two of sentimentality. What's your final one?
I thought long and hard about this, and this is probably the thing that drives me insane the most in life, and has done for many years, and that is the Cool FM breakfast show.
Brilliant, brilliant.
They
is
are
this a
just
personal
it
thing or?
really. It's just, yeah, I just cannot stand it, man. It is just utter bollocks. Like, they just talk shit. The music is shit. It doesn't come across as sincere. The bands that they have, I'm sure now, they're probably all very nice people. Pete Snodden and Paolo and Rebecca. Whatever. It's like one of my colleagues, sort of, just, I don't know. Well, he's recently left, so I don't get subjected to it anymore. But I'm just like, you're a nice guy. You're a flipping intelligent man. How can you listen to this shit every morning, like, and enjoy it?
We would sometimes have it on at work, but thankfully in work, we do have we can just change it. So because there's times where I'm listening to shows, either that particular one or ones of that ilk, and you're just like, seriously, these people but the thing is, they're what people, or they're what DJs think they're supposed to sound like, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And
Do you know
that's the
what
problem.
it's like how Radio One was about 15 years ago, and
Oh yeah,
it's a particular thing I think with breakfast show DJs is they have to try and sound upbeat and like,
yeah,
morning everyone, wiki wiki,
yeah. It's like because
that's
I
but I don't know, just that in particular, it just doesn't strike me as sincere. Half of the crack that they're supposedly having.
yeah, it's not. It's it feels like they're the only part. They're the only ones actually enjoying that.
Well, that's the tragic thing. There are many other people in this
Uh,
country who obviously do enjoy it because it's
wow.
still on air. But
True.
I think hopefully whoever takes over as first minister will ban it outright, and
That's the first
anyone listening
policy.
to it will be sent to anyone that is found listening to it will be sent to camp somewhere in the Sperrins.
Fantastic. Um, I've never been a massive sort of radio listener in terms of actual shows. There's been a couple over the years that I actually got into, and most of the time it has been because they're a bit different. So I used to be mad into like crying
Uh,
radio because they used to have just like off the wall presenters where it was like they just did what they wanted. They didn't
yeah,
abide by any sort of like DJ rules as such. And was just so much more fun. And I used to work with a guy. I haven't seen him in years, but Joe Ferguson, who is probably one of the best DJs I've ever heard. I didn't know him whenever he was a DJ, but then I listened
uh,
back to some of his stuff. He was on, I think it might have been Cool FM. I think it was Cool FM years ago. I think he ended up getting,
it sounds familiar.
I think he ended up getting sacked or suspended, and then became one of the top DJs over in Liverpool, Radio City. So it was like huge. Like me, I
Right,
was
okay.
bringing in, I think, over a million listeners every week. He used to do like Monday to Friday, Radio City. And if you ever look on
Yeah,
YouTube, like for the Joe Ferguson show, it's not what DJs sound like nowadays. It's not even what DJs sounded like then. He was just doing his own thing. But
yeah.
it's real. It's proper. It's just a guy
Uh,
on air just having the crack, and it was just sounds like so much fun.
See, that's the thing. I think, like, if you're doing stand-up comedy or doing a podcast or doing a radio show, you've got to do what you think is funny.
Yeah,
Because if you're trying to do what you think someone else is hopefully going to find funny, it's just
yeah,
not going to work. You've just, and sometimes what you find funny doesn't work, and you
yeah,
feel like a total arsehole because you're like, I thought that joke was hilarious when I wrote it. But
yeah,
I think that's the thing that, you know, winds me up about that sort of commercial radio format. And like when I lived in Scotland, I worked in an office and I used to get subjected to Fourth One radio in Edinburgh, which is
right,
very
okay,
similar to Cool FM. But
yeah,
it just seemed to be a wee bit more natural.
Right. Okay.
Um, so I don't know. I just find them intensely irritating. I'm sure there's plenty of people that find me the same, but fuck it.
Yeah, because you can't say that the Cool FM ones aren't allowed to say that on it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
it would be so much more interesting if they did.
I think that's something.
Brilliant.
I know.
So we've got your three. So we
But
have.
you're not allowed to put Cool FM into the sea because that would just upset me when I'm swimming.
Yeah, true, true. And we can't do that because there may be a backlash. I don't know if there is some sort of like crossover with anyone who listens to this and also listens to Cool FM. And I don't want to. I can't afford to lose any listeners. I can't afford to lose a listener because then I might not have any listeners. um, so we have your three. We have the planned obsolescence, we have sentimentality, and the Cool FM breakfast show. So we'll not put Cool FM in the sea because, as you say, you'll then have to listen to it in the sea, and that wouldn't be good for your mental health.
Well, do you know something? Actually, I'll go back on that. I could wear earplugs because that would stop water getting into my ears and making my hearing worse. So, feel free to chuck Cool
It's a
FM into
possibility.
the deepest depths of the ocean.
Further than you've ever been out. But I won't. I'm gonna leave Cool FM. So we have sentimentality and planned obsolescence. I don't think I'll put sentimentality in because that also touches on maybe thinking about good memories as well. So sentimentality kind of touches on good and bad, but planned obsolescence is just corporate companies being dicks, really. Like, think about it.
Yeah, that's a very good economic theory there, Johnny.
Thank you. Welcome to my TED Talk. Yeah. So we'll put planned obsolescence
but ultimately it is.
Yeah, it's the worst. I'm the same. Like every time I buy a phone, I'm like, will this last the 2 years that I have it? And majority of the time, it's like it gets to like about a year in, your phone's like just barely holding on. It's like you charge it, and then you leave the house, and then you look at it, and you're like, it's 10% battery. And it's like it literally charged you for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
You've done nothing You've done nothing all morning. No, it's bad. It's bad. So to kind of wrap it up, in terms of comedy, what have you any plans for the future? Are you kind of happy with where you're at, or is there anything you have left to achieve?
Yeah, well, funny, I think a few other comedians that have been on have said I don't really set any goals in terms of comedy. I definitely want to do like my own show. I was feeling Graham asked me to do one a couple of years ago down at the Black Box, but I didn't feel it was quite ready to do like an hour of material. And now I feel that it could, but couldn't just jump straight back in. So just to keep enjoying it, that's the main thing, is just to keep going to new places and just keep meeting people and keep having fun doing it.
Yeah,
because it's class.
It's
one of the best things I've ever got into.
And you're one of those people as well. I think that you don't really get nervous, do you?
No, it's like I was so nervous before my first gig.
Yeah,
and it was really shit. Like I did exactly what I just said you shouldn't do, which is I tried to sort of mold my whole set on someone else that I admired.
Right.
It wasn't stuff that I found funny. It was stuff that I could have imagined him saying that would have been funny.
Right.
And it just didn't work. And I sort of realized about 20 minutes before I was going to go on stage, this is really shit. And I was literally shaking and felt like I was going to be sick and everything. And just after that, it was pretty much ever since then, I'm like, well, it can't be that bad. And I've never really been nervous going on stage after that. Like,
you've kind of just found your feet with it, and kind of what you find funny now. And if other people don't find it funny, then it's their problem.
But it was just like, I had the ingenious idea of doing a really, really bad first gig to get the nerves out of the way for the rest of them.
That's not a bad idea. I went the opposite way. I had a really good gig and then had a really terrible gig. But after the first gig, I thought I was like the king of comedy, and I was not at all.
Yeah, well, don't get me wrong, the second one wasn't much better.
No,
Um,
really.
but yeah, it'll be interesting to see when it starts back up what the nerves are like. I think I'm hopefully going to be doing support for Shane in one of his outdoor gigs, sort of being in
Oh,
touch with
brilliant.
him.
No, that'd be class.
I can't wait to get back to it. And I don't think I will be nervous. I think I'll be prepared enough and excited enough
Yeah.
that,
You just
you
can't
know,
wait to do it.
uh, yeah, but, it's just going to take a wee while. I might be a wee bit rusty and just see what happens.
Yeah. Just bang it out. But that's great. Thank you so much for coming on. And again, apologies for almost stealing your joke.
No, no worries. It's lucky you didn't. And don't even think about it again. Your legs.
Perfect. Thanks very much. All the best.
No, thanks for having me on.